Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, April 22nd meeting of the Transportation Committee. Here in the Penfield Auditorium, I have on the Transportation Committee, Lori Enos, Mary Sweeney, Jason Ebbs. With me here, Tim Freer is on Zoom. And in the audience here, we have Sarah Waterman, we have Mark Valentine, Eric Tate, and we have Linda Cummings, sorry, as well. So thank you all for joining us this evening. First order of business is the approval of minutes. You have before you, Board, the February 17th minutes. I'll give you a couple minutes. I think everyone received them, and looked at them. Any corrections, comments here? I see anybody? Linda, again, you did a wonderful job on those minutes. So if not hearing any discussion, all those in favor of those minutes?
I move to approve them, yeah.
Move to approve,
And I'll
okay.
second.
Second to approve, okay, thank you. So the minutes are passed for February 17th, thank you again. Moving on to item 3, committee discussion. And the first one under that is a follow-up for us from the last meeting we had from the Embury Road physical barrier request. And this was under Mr. Tate, I believe we talked about this, and we held that for, I'm sorry, Mark Valentine?
I can cue it up, and then Sarah's got the background on it.
Okay.
So this was one that came to us a couple of meetings ago we've been looking at, and then we had the number of accidents at that intersection, but then wanted further detail. So after the last meeting, we reached out to the Sheriff's Office, got that additional detail, the accident reports from that, shared that with the group, and looking more of the detail that goes into that, which way were they headed, was the accident at the intersection, was it east or west of that. So we did get that breakdown. Sarah can go through that, but this is a follow-up of that additional information we were looking at is how to best make a decision on this item.
Great, thank you.
So generally, when we're looking at accident data for different parts of town, we will go back 5 years. So we got accident data back to 2017. There was one accident in 2017 caused by an item in the road that a resident swerved around, and that caused them to strike a tree. In 2018, there was one accident, and that was due to a resident running the stop sign at Qualtrough at Embury, and they ended up in the driveway across the street. In 2019, there were 3 accidents. One of them was also because someone ran that stop sign, and it was due to a medical issue, and they ran into a double arrow sign across from that intersection. The other 2 were due to speed. One hit a parked car, and one hit a caution sign. One was going westbound and one was going eastbound. So looking at that data, it's not primarily due to speed, it's not primarily due to the curve. There have been no accidents in 2020, 2021, or 2022 at that intersection.
Sarah, the one accident that was heading eastbound, was that the accident that struck the vehicle?
Eastbound. No, that was the accident that struck the sign.
Okay, thank you.
And that was one of the chevron signs. Then we also looked at the intersection of Witherspoon and Embury, which is across the street from the resident concern. And that had 2 accidents, one in 2017 and one in 2019. Both were due to following too closely. One was with a bus and one was with a car. Because of that, it doesn't really warrant putting up any barriers or anything like that. And then I believe also, I did miss last meeting, so I don't recall, and maybe Eric does. I believe we checked where the chevron signs are, and those are in the correct locations. And Eric agreed. So At this point, I do not have a next step for that intersection for the committee to take.
Okay. One of the things we did talk about was, now that spring's coming, is putting the speed trailer back out in that section. And I think we talked to, Eric's nodding his head, that we did talk about that. So I hope that maybe that, I think this committee felt that that would be a good step for us to take for the next, put that high on the list as far as getting the trailer out there with that. And maybe we could monitor some speed a little bit more. People could get a little education on this of their own on how they're doing. Is that, anybody else have any other suggestions? Eric or Mark?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly put the, the radar feedback trailer back out, just to help kind of remind everyone. We can put it in one direction, kind of move it around town, and then actually bring it back out to the same location, put it on the opposite side of the road, so it's picking up both eastbound and westbound traffic. I think the other thing, I can also reach back out to the individual or the resident that shared the initial concern and let them know that, what the committee's decision has been. And again, if they want to plant some additional trees or, plantings within their yard, that's their right.
Right, right. I think that's what we talked about last time as well. So I appreciate that. Just a clarification, when we put the trailer out, about how long do we usually leave it on a area?
Typically, it's about a week.
Okay.
It is a battery-powered trailer, so that battery lasts about a week before it needs to be taken back in to recharge.
Okay, good. Unless anyone has any other suggestions or comments on that, I think we're good for follow-up. Do we put this in as a hold, or is that an item that we're done with then?
I think it's something we can take off the agenda. We're not recommending any physical improvements. The speed trailers, always feedback. But specifically, we were looking at, the resident to the east of Qualtrough had asked or looked at, the requirement or the need for a barrier. Having the number of accidents last time didn't really give us that data that we have now, and look at, it's kind of scattered on what was the cause. It's not all 6 accidents went that way. A barrier, would have helped to prevent it. As Sarah went through that litany of things, it's failure to yield at a stop sign, too much speed, some going east, some going north, some going west. So I don't think it's a specific concern that's happening over and over again. It's
kind of nice to know that there, in the last 3 years or 2.5 years at least, there haven't been anything in that area. So I don't like to even say that, but but that's encouraging. Maybe people are learning there. So thank you. Okay. So number 2 is, again, a follow-up on the Embury Road and the Scribner Road, the motor vehicle accident that we were going to look at the accident reports from the sheriff's office on that. Sarah, Mark?
And I can tee that one up again. Sarah can follow up on it. So this one we had, I received a phone call from a resident that said that she'd been hit at this intersection, had some concerns with the safety of it. She asked, if we could consider putting a traffic light there. We shared at the last meeting that, that's not the immediate go-to. We again need to look at the accident data. Sarah can go through that, and then we would look at an escalation of, what it is today. So today it's a 4-way stop. We can look at, and, Sarah went out and took some pictures, reviewing are the stop bars out there, I think the crosswalks need to be refreshed. We can look at, the size and location of the, make sure the stop signs are appropriate, whether we need to double post it. So there are some escalation measures that can be taken ahead of that. That's kind of the ultimate, answer, but I think there's other steps we would take before we jump to that limit. So Sarah took some pictures out there of that. She also took some pictures of what the county did. They've been working and reporting back to this committee at Sweets Corners and Harris Road. Now that's not a 4-way stop, so that's a through access. So they recently put up stop signs that are larger. Sarah's showing on the screen, saying that those were new. They double posted both sides. They also put up signs saying cross traffic does not stop.
I like those,
to reinforce, and then as you go back, then there's the stop ahead signs out there as well. So just is not saying that this is the measures that are needed for, you can see the stop ahead signs, again, are new, double posted on either side. Then the stop signs in the distance, and then specifically the cross traffic doesn't stop. So not the same intersection, not the same set up. So not saying this is exactly what we need to do, but just as some education for the public is kind of some of the measures you take to, escalate, the intersection or, the
Right.
awareness as people approach. If they're not seeing it, they're not aware, they're missing it. Some of the additional methods you can take for that.
Mark, I just want to say that the intersection at Embury and Scribner is one that Mary and I are in quite frequently because we live right near there. I don't think that the signs are going to make a difference because people are distracted when they're driving. They're not even noticing the signs, and they're just flying right on through. So I personally don't want a stoplight there. I mean, I don't want that.
And if they're not seeing a stop sign, what says they're going to see a stoplight either?
Exactly.
So a blinking red or a blinking yellow.
I don't know what else we can
something.
do.
I think just, again, raising the visibility of it, having hopefully either a stop ahead sign.
The only thing I would almost suggest would be
larger stop sign.
when you're approaching Baird Road and
Wayland, or is it Wayland?
Wayland
With the
Road,
flash?
where they've got the flashers. I know it's because you're coming up a hill, but I don't know if they go the other way too, but that might be helpful.
And that's a continued escalation. I think we need to start at, maybe it's due to double post on either side, have a stop sign on the right and the left.
Okay.
Do something to, bring visibility. We can check the reflectivity of the signs, check the size of what's out there. You can go, slightly
They're
larger on the
smaller.
signs, again, to bring awareness to it, see how that works for a little bit, see if the awareness is there, continue to monitor the intersection, and then, again, that would be more of an escalation to it. that
I almost got hit again this week, and it's not even that busy with schools being out, but it was just somebody just flying right on through, and I had come to a complete stop, and I thought, they're far enough back that they're going to stop, and they just didn't, and I'm like, just barely got through as they were coming through.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, distracted driving is hard to,
I know.
Terrible, yeah.
hard to stop, prevent. Obviously, that's an enforcement issue. We can share that with the sheriff's office, but to have somebody sitting there just waiting for somebody to
Every
drive
once in
through
a while, I see a
intersections,
sheriff
timing.
parked over there.
And as we do,
car.
for a lot of the area of the town, we ask for their assistance and ask for them to, monitor areas and
And that's
hopefully
another area.
And Mark,
get people awareness.
it may also be beneficial to put up there, similar to the cross traffic doesn't stop, there's a four-way stop.
Doesn't it say that
type of
already?
signs. It doesn't right now.
It doesn't
Oh.
say that because I went through there.
And that might be helpful as in the traffic reports that we did get, obviously people not stopping and people not yielding right of way were the issues, but there was writing kind of from the police officer that explained a couple of them didn't realize that they needed to stop, both because they didn't see the sign and because they thought that the other side was stopping, so they didn't need to. So I'm
okay.
not saying that that's the
that
right
stop
way
sign was a
for
suggestion. The
people
other guy
to
said
I'm blonde.
to look
that
at
works for
it.
me, right? Just
But one of the benefits of putting up that sign with the stop sign is that it helps remind residents and drivers that it's a four-way stop, not a two-way stop.
right.
And,
It
you know,
seems to make sense.
I was just through those stop signs, and I ride a lot out in East Penfield. Those stop signs that they put at Sweets Corners, and you just did a picture of it. I just took one too. I'm glad you have it. But it's a lot larger stop sign.
And that's part of what
I
Mark-
think that would
Yeah,
really
that'd
make
probably
a
be
difference
good
too.
first
And
step.
that's what you say, some of the first steps we can take,
Right.
ahead of going
To
to a
try to
traffic light,
educate.
ahead of going to a blinking light. Everybody wants a traffic light at their intersection, their driveway, the road. Obviously, we need to kind of look at the holistic of the town, but obviously to make sure it's, it's safe as well. So we can look at, and I know, Tim formerly with the county, he's, was part of the Sweets Corners, and you can jump in when you want to, jump in, but, those are the steps you typically take, is kind of escalate it and bring more visibility to it. Obviously, if people aren't seeing it, whether distracted driving, whether just kind of going on autopilot, you try to
Right.
change that a little bit.
Agreed, yep. And, well, you don't want to necessarily compare the Sweets Corners, and you noted that certainly, it's an iterative process, right? Whereby the larger stop signs stop ahead, and then additional information once they're stopped. And as you look at those intersections, the intersection of Embury and Scribner, of those 11, 5 of them didn't stop in the southbound direction. So that would tell you maybe there's a little visibility, or there's more distraction for southbound drivers than there are for northbound, and there's only one northbound. Everyone stopped at Embury. So it doesn't seem like that, whether it's a site issue or just distracted, or they're stopping at Embury, they're not stopping on Scribner. So if you wanted to do one or both legs of Scribner in both directions with larger stop signs and double post it, one on each side to increase the visibility, and then see if that pattern continues. That's certainly an approach that would be both sound and not necessarily the lowest cost. Cost doesn't really matter. You're trying to create change some driver behaviors, and that's certainly an appropriate way to do that. Then look at a pattern after 3 years and see if that pattern has been corrected. Then you're working in the right direction. And if not, then you could take it to the next level with some either additional signage or moving up to the warning lights, which the flashing brings more attention to it, but also you need solar and you need power and all these other things that you have to keep them going. Otherwise, they're not good if they're not working.
Okay, fair enough. So is everyone in agreement that the next steps then would be to look into the?
I mean, we can make that recommendation, for that and work with Eric and his team, and then obviously ultimately, as a advisory committee, we'll escalate it to the town board. That could be our recommendation of first steps to the board, and then, have the board sign off on that, and then work with Eric and his team to work on implementing that.
Great.
Sounds good.
Sounds good
to me.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. I don't think we have to.
Are you suggesting, Mark, that just for north and southbound or all 4 legs?
I mean, I think at this time, that's, according to the accident data, it appeared that was the north and south.
But I'm the one that is going north and south and almost getting T-boned
Somebody
from
from
people
somebody from
going
Embury?
down Embury.
Okay.
Usually
I say I don't
going
have-
But
east.
I've seen it going east.
Yeah, it's going east.
I've seen cars
Yeah,
not
east.
stopping going east, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it less effective if we, Tim, or
I mean,
Mark,
you can
if
do
we
all
were to
4
do all
legs. It's
4?
just,
Not necessarily, no. Just if the pattern based on the accident data which demonstrate a
South.
need for north and southbound,
south.
those are the vehicles that clearly didn't stop. But
We certainly could
Certainly
start
having
with
it in
that
all
since
4
we have the data
directions.
to support that. do
but I mean,
north
if you're
and south.
seeing cars that aren't stopping and going eastbound, then that apparently is an issue as well. So I think if we're going to,
They keep going, they hit 5 Mile, and that's probably where they're heading.
Yeah.
It's their cut through to 5 Mile from,
well, then maybe need it on all 4 legs, if we're going to do it and implement it, then all 4 legs to be effective. And
I mean, and also the vehicles that are heading both eastbound and southbound, given Greenwood Park being at that intersection, maybe, distracted, kind of paying attention to what's going on in the park at that given time.
that's true, yeah.
That's a good point. Very good point, because that's busy, and especially coming up now here.
Yeah, even now, they're out there playing basketball.
Right.
We're freezing looking at them, but they're playing.
lacrosse season comes soon,
Yeah,
and,
lacrosse, right.
Yeah, and all the
that's
teams start
an
playing, all
active park,
the little
so-
kids, yeah.
That's a good point.
Tim, there were some accidents that were Embury, like going east and westbound on Embury.
but they stopped.
They stopped, yes. So it's,
So that means they saw the
so,
stop sign.
so they did see the stop sign, but they started going through the intersection, and then they're the ones that hit someone else. So yes, it's not technically their fault, but that, I think
Speed was probably an issue. At
the
that point.
speed might be an issue through that stop sign, because part of it was that both directions would stop, and then one would go, and then the other would go. And then it was also that one would stop, and then the one in the other direction would continue, and that caused the accident because they did not yield right of way.
Yes, I was pointing out
Yeah.
when, according to the reports, if both stopped,
Yeah.
they saw the stop sign, so they stopped, okay. Doesn't matter if you have 1 stop sign, 2, it doesn't matter how big it is.
Sure.
Those people would have stopped regardless, right?
That makes sense.
You're trying to get at the people that don't see it, that didn't, whether they're distracted, whether they're unfamiliar with it, or
For whatever reason.
sun glare, whatever the reason is, to bring that to their attention. So that was my only point in those 5 southbounds. They, at least per the police report and the
Sure.
driver's statements, they didn't stop. So you can only go with what they wrote, right?
Of course.
And some weren't written that well. You had to, like, there's a couple I actually had a question mark. I think in the one in 21, it wasn't even clear if the southbound stopped, but
I
I
had the
can't
same
assume that they
question.
did.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you like to come to the dais? Can you? I'm not good at microphone. Would you like to just state your name, please?
Can you hear me? Tell me if you can hear me.
Yeah. Just pull it to your right.
Basically
Can you just say your name, sir?
Alan Clancy.
Alan, and where's your address?
I live on 1717 Qualtrough.
Okay, well, thank you.
So what you've been saying, I didn't come for that specific, but that road, I talked to the town supervisor, secretary or assistant, that we have tremendous speeding on that road right now. Because everybody is cutting through because they don't want to get down Scribner because of the schools, I think, because there's no speed zone. I can barely get out of my driveway half the time because people are, it's 35, and even if somebody's going 40, but they're literally flying down through there. And the sheriff's department will be there, but the sheriff's department is always at the fire station. All right, and when somebody turns off Atlantic or Browncroft, they're not going to be speeding. And by the time they get down there, they're slowing down. So if the sheriff's department is going to actually be there to try to slow them down, they need to be parking like on some of the other side streets, or where I grew up, you got permission to park in somebody's driveway. Because somebody's going to get hit sooner or later. There's a lot of older people on that road now, okay, which I happen to be one. But I'm not as old as a lot of my neighbors. And somebody's going to get clobbered someday. And it's not just when school's in session, et cetera. It's all the time. I can tell you in a half hour, I could count probably 8 or 10 cars that speed. And just all you things, what she talked about, Scribner and Embury, I've been almost hit twice in the last 2 months going north. They were going north and south. And they're not distracted. There's nothing going on in the middle of winter.
Right.
And I've literally
distracted by they're on their phone.
Well, yes, they could be, but I've literally, stopped. I've stopped and then went, and I've literally got to jam on my brakes to not get broadsided twice, one from each direction. So, it literally is, and I've had a head-on collision. I get a little bit of post-traumatic stress syndrome every time something like that happens. So everything you've been talking, basically, I've seen as a resident, and not in the last little bit. And it's very dangerous.
Okay. Yep.
And I'm just afraid, before
Thank
something, and I think, maybe there's double signs or something, or a larger sign. I don't know what the dimensions are, but, you're going to have some elderly residents going to get. My neighbors have screamed at people speeding by, and the people have turned around and come back and give them the salute sign.
Okay.
And then literally went back faster than they were going before. And there's kids, there's, a lot of people with grandkids and stuff. I know there's a sidewalk.
Yep.
But somebody's going to get hurt. And,
Thank you for your input.
I know the price of signs, et cetera, but that's not worth somebody's life.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that was noted. So it's not a concern about the cost. It's just we want to escalate in increments.
Yeah.
And it's very appropriate to move in that direction. I think that the committee's kind of come to that consensus.
Right.
Because I spoke with, I left a message a month ago, with the supervisor, and they said they would try to put out your speed trailers on Qualtrough, but it's yet to happen. So.
We generally wait for snow to stop falling.
Yeah. Well, I'm just, at some point, hopefully, at least maybe that would, make people aware.
I think, and I think you heard that that's first on the list.
Yeah. I just didn't know if it was, I didn't know if you meant there, but up
Right.
towards, I know where you mean in Embury, but I'm just saying, once they get past like Hallmark, they're literally flying.
That's my cut through for getting to Brooncroft also.
And I realize it's not everybody.
I do have people riding my butt
But
when I'm doing the speed.
it's not just like one car
Right.
occasionally. It's gotten worse since we lived here.
Okay.
And, I've had more close calls since I've been here in 7 years. I had in the rest of my life, except for a couple of accidents. And that's a little scary.
Yes. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
And
input.
I had something later.
Sure, in public participation? That'll be later.
About the child signs.
Yes, that'll be later. Okay.
So all this stuff really kind of has involved me, so I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. Thank you for your input.
Personal.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I think we've agreed to look into that, the
Yep.
stop,
We'll
larger.
proceed on that.
Proceed on larger stop signs and the notices.
Yep.
Yeah, and so we're good on that. Any other, we've kind of talked about that. Okay, great. Thank you for that. We're on to number 3. Item 3 is the Harris Road speeding concern. And I'm going to give that to you, Mr. Valentine.
Sure. So obviously, first and foremost, similar to other roads, Harris Road is a county road, so we'll refer it to the county. But just wanted to share, again, with the residents, some of the requests that came in was to lower the speed limit on the road and just to kind of, let's say, artificially push it down. As we've shared with this group before, that can create more issues than you think is the benefit of it, saying, well, it's listed as 40 today, people drive 50, we should make it 30, then people will drive 40. As we've talked in this group, the speed is based on the 85th percentile of what the average person drives down the road. So if you artificially push the speed limit down, some people are going to be doing 30, following the rules, others will still be doing 50, and now you've created a more dangerous disparity with it. So that's the only part I wanted to kind of share on that one. But I say Harris Road is a county road. We'll refer it back to the county with the concerns of the residents, let the county, respond accordingly. But just wanted to, share that it was discussed here, that was passed on, through the supervisor's office to this committee. But just say it's not as simple as saying, well, our road is posted 40 or 50, we want it down to 25 or 30, and that'll solve the situation. Often that can create more issues as some people are driving the speed limit, some people are still going to continue to drive 50 because that's the speed they're comfortable. It often creates more issues than it benefits, but we'll let the county respond to that one. And
Okay. And Mark, what is the speed limit on there again?
I believe it's 40, at least in the section that they were referring to. So
Okay.
I can't say that it's 40 on all of the road.
Yep.
But I know they were asking for it to be lowered, so I'm just saying if it was 35 or 30.
And isn't it,
Create some-
we've talked about this before at our meetings, that people standing on the side of the road, they think people are going 50 and they might only be going 45.
And
they
that's
might be-
also,
Yeah, they
you
might
know-
only, it looks faster than, when you're standing still, than it probably really is.
Yep,
So
and
when we
I
do
say
the
we
trailers,
can put the speed trailer out there, that helps
Yeah.
not only, educate, people in the car, how fast they're going, but also the people on the side of the road, what the speeds are. We can put the traffic counters out, and, I know the county has done that. They've, shared data. Obviously, they've been looking at the Sweets Corners intersection, recently and have gone through that, so they've got data in that section as well.
did we ever move forward with that guy that, or was a resident that came to us with the permanent kind of speed things that, from his company in Boston?
They are still working on it. I hear from him every so
Okay.
often. He and his group have found out that, they're developing, and I think this was in the fall.
Yeah, it was
There's a
fall.
gentleman that lives locally, went off to school, wants to develop a speed cart that not only tells you the speed feedback, which we get,
Right.
records the data, but also can see and monitor whether you're wearing your seatbelt, whether you're on your cell phone, and then display a, no cell phone sign or some,
Right, I was
accordingly
just
with that. So-
wondering, and they were talking about putting 3 of them around town in
They're
a
still-
trial
I
run.
remember.
Yep, we met with them and talked about, potentially having it on a cart would be helpful. I know he, reached out to Eric to see what kind of cart we use and,
Well, it'd be
what
kind of
do we have
interesting
for
to
a
have
trailer
them
to make it
in spots that we keep getting, like Harris Road
Make
keeps
it
coming back on,
portable. And as we said, having,
permanent ones.
too many fixed spots, you kind of, again, it becomes,
True.
say white noise becomes, too
mean-
much.
We also discussed the permanent just speed feedback signs, and we're going to purchase 2 of them.
And we have those, we're still working on getting those out and getting those
Yeah.
deployed.
I mean, and we got
we've
them right
ours and-
before the bad season, so obviously it doesn't benefit putting them up in a hard ground. Well, it may benefit, but it's pretty hard to do.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
But we
Okay.
do have 2 of those to distribute around
right.
town.
Awesome. Okay, I was just, as we were
Yep,
talking, because
I
I
say
think
it's been a
that was
month
one
or
of the
so I
things we
heard
had
from
talked
him, but
about.
I think he's found out I don't say it's more complicated, but I think they've been doing great things with it. I think they're developing it, but it's just
Awesome.
taken more time than what they thought, but
Okay, thank you.
hopefully we'll,
And
one of their spots, they can pilot it.
Mark, one other thing on that Harris Road, was that the entire stretch, was there a certain section she was definitely always concerned about, that intersection of Sweets
This was
and
not Sweets
Harris?
Corners. This was to the northern end, to my recollection
Okay.
of where they had concern,
More up,
I think up towards Kennedy.
Okay.
But obviously, people, speed on large
that's another-
portions of the road. It's
Yeah.
people, it's East Penfield, it's country
it is.
roads, people get rolling along.
Yeah.
We will
I think
continue to.
the address was in the block from Penfield Road to Sweets Corners.
Okay, thank you.
She gave an address for some brush pickup. I'm assuming that's where she lived.
Okay, thank you
Okay.
for the, I know we've heard from the northern end up towards Kennedy, but, if this specific one, thanks for pulling that up.
I was just checking the data viewer. They haven't collected any speed data there. The state hasn't in.
Yeah, 1930
ever, so.
Harris.
Okay.
Is
That
that,
helps you any?
okay.
Yeah.
Because I can, but I agree with you say, it doesn't feel that you're going faster sometimes
Oh,
when
yeah.
you're
So
standing there.
The feedback cart does help with that.
The only thing I would say is that when I'm riding, and I do ride a bicycle throughout East Penfield, and I mean, those roads, Salt and Harris, I stay off of, unless I really don't ride those. I'll ride Sweets out to, way out, but maybe as I've gotten older or something, I'm more cognizant
More
of these guys,
Well, some of those roads, and I know we're working,
Some of them
Eric's
are-
paving the shoulder and working
Right.
on some improvements on those, but a lot of those don't have good shoulder for biking, so you're in the travel lane, and, if people they're long, straight roads, so people
They are.
just kind of get rolling
They are.
Right,
along, and
you just
There-
drive at the
that's
speed
it,
that
I
you
think.
feel comfortable
And
driving.
the cars
Even if it's
ride.
35, you're doing 55. I've done that and looked down and gone, oh my God, and
Right.
hit
Yeah,
the brakes.
that's where the feedback cart, the honest, keep the honest people honest, and look, and you're just not aware that you've
Right.
kind of just,
Cruising along.
you're on autopilot, you're just kind of cruising along, you're not paying attention, that's the intent, is to kind of
Yep.
bring it back to,
So
reality.
are we all in agreement that the speed, next thing should be the speed?
we can put the speed
Counter?
card out, and obviously we'll share this with the,
Okay.
the county DOT
County,
and have
yeah.
them respond accordingly, but just wanted to, since it was brought up,
Does that sound good,
Mark?
Tim?
address it at this meeting.
With
Yep.
that request,
How many speed carts do you have, Eric?
Yeah, we
One.
only have one. I was going to say, Eric, we're giving
Eric's
Eric
running
quite a
around
list.
town all over.
I think we got to move up spring a little bit.
Mark, with that request, would it be appropriate to ask the county to also do speed counts?
We can ask them if they can add that to their list for the summer.
Okay, that's a great idea.
Yeah, that'd be,
Speed
The
count.
sheriff's department also has a speed cart that we can request that they can put, utilize theirs to help
Oh,
in
on
the
a county
event
road?
that ours is unavailable too.
oh, sweet.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's cool.
Great.
Awesome.
Is that just for it's probably for the entire county? Is theirs?
They do have a few that they
Oh, do
kind of
they?
bounce around a number of locations.
Good to
The
know.
most recent location, I know they had one on Jackson Road, closest to probably the food shelf for northbound traffic. That was actually the counties that was
Oh,
out,
okay,
I believe, mid to end of last summer.
okay, great.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 4 is a Valley Green speeding concern. Mark, Mr. Valentine, and I guess a request for a children at play sign?
And this was Mr. Clancy
That's you?
had come in and shared his daughter lives in the neighborhood and have seen, cars cutting through the neighborhood and aren't, I guess, being aware as they should of children
They're
within the
cutting through to
neighborhood.
go where? From where to where? It doesn't
think-
look like,
So
Maybe you
this-
can lead more
Valley Green?
or provide more.
And I
data.
can point out where Valley Green is on the map, just for
They-
the committee members. Valley,
They come off Whalen Road down, I can't remember the name of the road.
Summer Glen? Summer Glen, I believe is the main.
Summer Glen.
Right.
All right, and there's a stop sign at the end of Summer Glen, which almost nobody stops right now. But they either have to, it's a T, they have to
It's
either
that
go,
T,
they either
right,
have
you
to
can go either way.
go north, which they do, which most of them, I believe, are cutting over to 441.
Right.
Or if they go south, it's a cul-de-sac.
Yep.
But it's like 2/10 of a mile, basically, from Summer Glen up Valley Green, and there's quite a good curve.
you really have to know that
and-
that's there, because I didn't even know that was a cut through. Interesting.
And it's maybe 2/10 of a mile. It's not even, it's a very short stretch, and people, I've tried it personally. If you're not 25, it's supposed to be a 25 mile an hour speed limit.
Right.
Even if people are going 30, they're probably not going to hurt somebody. But if you have to put your brakes on to go around that curve every time, then you're probably going a little fast. But there's, what has happened, I think, is when my daughter moved in 6 years ago, there was a lot of older folks living there.
Yeah.
A good share of the houses have turned over, and there are a lot of kids, not even going up where it turns into Lazy Trail. It goes, there's a lot of children up there, but if you go all the way towards the cul-de-sac, there's a lot of kids.
It is
And
crazy up there.
people even live there, don't slow down. I don't think they know there's a lot of kids, but there is. And again, I just think we need to, maybe they're not paying attention, they're not stopping at the Stein, I can tell you that.
So,
But I don't think they pay attention to the speed limit signs, but maybe they'll pay attention to if it says children at play. Maybe at least they'll know that there's kids there. I don't know, but it's getting more and more dangerous. I mean, I've literally thought my daughter should move. I mean, it's dangerous. So I'm just, I just requested if we could have a look at it, and just see if we could either put, at least children play either going north and one going south. Maybe that would help. I don't know, but I thought about putting a fake video camera up and telling people if they're on the camera, because they don't stop.
Is there a neighborhood watch in that area?
Just going to ask that.
I don't think so.
Oh, see, Mary and I happen to live in the same development, and we had a problem with some speeding like that in our development, and we started a neighborhood watch, and believe it or not, we were complaining about this car, and this gentleman at the meeting went, "Oh my God, that's my son. It will never happen again." So if they're made aware of the issues, sometimes we do mailings, right?
Well, the thing is, you think most people now are working.
Right.
You don't have the people there to watch.
But it's their kids that are driving,
No.
they're driving speeding fast, or the people that are driving back and forth to work are driving fast.
I rarely see a younger person that's causing the.
Oh, okay.
I mean, really, it's mostly, I think, people going to work, probably cutting across. I'm just, I know some people who would, go up into Lazy Trail or some of those places, but majority of people, you see them every day, and they're going both ways, so I don't know if I know a lot of people do cut through there. I mean, I've talked to people, and they cut through there all the time.
I think I'm misunderstanding a little bit. Are you saying they're cutting through from Whalen going all the way down to 441, or are they cutting through to get to a different part of the subdivision?
No, you come off Whalen, you go in Summer Glen, which then
Yep.
turns into Valley Green.
Yep.
Right, and so
Right
they go
here.
north to go, and a lot of them, I think, do cut through.
but that's a long way to cut.
I know, that's not
to
a-
go back over to Penfield Road.
That's not a shortcut.
But they don't like to, you don't have to go all the way down to the stop sign.
Right.
You don't have to go to the second stop sign to come back up Whalen. There's two stop, there's two, you got this.
I know exactly what you're talking.
You have a stop sign at 441. that
Right.
You wait, then you have to go down, you have the stop sign at the end of Whalen. So you've got to stop twice to come back down that way.
How many stop signs are in the neighborhood? Because you've got to stop.
I mean,
at the
stop
T.
lights,
Oh, stop lights.
stop
But there's
lights.
quite a few stop signs in that
Yes, I was going to say, there's
subdivision.
quite a few stop signs in there. It's
No.
probably neighbors that are speeding.
No, it's not really, it's not.
Well, there's a whole track, there may be people coming off of Whalen that are going down into
Yeah.
that other
Well,
area
yes,
down there.
it could
And
be
so
both.
those are neighbors in that.
Yes, it could be
in that
both.
development.
I'm not saying, but I'm just saying either way,
Right.
I know a child that got killed the same way.
Mark, for
In
next
that
steps.
division?
No,
Oh,
before I
where
moved
where
here.
are you proposing a child play sign would go in this
Well,
Valley Green?
I'm just saying, if you have one going down into the cul-de-sac, if you have one going, up the hill, where everybody's going in that direction. I'm not an engineer, but I'm
Sure.
just asking.
So generally, when looking at next steps, when there's a request for a child at play sign, we look at, is it a neighborhood or is it a main road where you would not expect children to be? And that's kind of the first questions that we go through. From there, you look at where would it be appropriate to put one. And if you are putting a child at play sign up, you generally put them when something transitions from a major street to like a residential area. So Northrop, actually north of here, half of the street, it's pretty spread out. It looks kind of like a country road. And then all of a sudden, the houses get a lot closer to the road, and it's more of a residential area. That's an appropriate place to put a child at play sign. Prior to generally putting up child at play signs, we'll do traffic counts, we'll have enforcement, we'll even sometimes put up the speed feedback machine. So I think it's an appropriate discussion that we're having. But it would be appropriate to discuss our next steps and what the committee feels would be good to move forward with.
Yeah, I'm just, I didn't know, I'm not, as I said, I'm not an engineer, I'm just suggesting. But I do know that if you go when people are going to work in the morning or at 5 o'clock or so, and you come home, if you sat there and watched how many people don't stop at the stop sign and then speed, then you would know.
And
So that's a good argument to have the sheriffs there to do some traffic stops, or, just to watch. And then
Enforcement.
to do our traffic counts and the speed trailer. Those are
Because the area has changed.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
I mean, people going
Oh, yeah,
through.
neighborhoods turn over, and
Yeah.
that's very normal, actually,
Well-
and anticipated.
Right.
But
So, I'm not
those are good-
pushing for anything in particular. I just think something needs to be done before
Yeah,
some of those
sure.
kids get hit.
And that's part of why Eric, Mark, and I are all here to give those options to the committee of what are generally appropriate engineering steps.
I mean, there are yards, but even, you know how kids,
Of course, I've got one coming on the way. I understand completely.
I can tell. I was going to say something afterwards.
so
Yeah.
that's all I'm suggesting is that, I've almost got hit several times, just walking my dog,
Yeah.
or walking her dog.
Yeah.
It's not just a little speed. I mean, to gun it from, which is, maybe 0.2 miles. Well, you don't gun your car to get up to a corner.
Well, and the value of putting the traffic counters out is for the committee to suggest something to the town board for an action that we need to have data. So I think it would be appropriate if the committee agrees to put the traffic counters out and get that
Exactly.
data.
Yeah.
Well, I just,
I think-
that's fine with me. I just think we need to get something, has to happen before somebody gets hurt.
Sure.
Do you have the address where your daughter lives?
105 Valley Green.
Okay. Just so we can put the traffic counters in an appropriate area.
I mean, my
right-
daughter has, if you go up, and it turns into Lazy Trail,
Yes.
basically. There's a lot of kids up in there now, and there's a lot in the cul-de-sac.
She's in that stretch right before Lazy Trail, correct?
Well,
It's a stretch right there.
yeah.
curve.
Yeah, if you come
Curve.
in Whale and you come to Summer Glen,
Yep.
and you've got to go, left or right.
Right.
But the people going up, I mean, like she said, you could be going faster than you think, or maybe people think you're going faster, but after a while, you get to kind of know that they're not going 25.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So,
One of the, I guess one of the other steps that we, sometimes take when, looking at these situations, as you're entering the neighborhood, on the speed limit signs where you actually turn in, so in this case, we'd look at when you turn onto Summer Glen from Wayland Road, on the first speed limit sign, we've got strips that we can put up and down on the poles that indicate slow down. They're in fluorescent, reflective, coloring. There is one on that sign already, so that,
on Summer Glen.
on Summer
but not
Glen,
on
as you're turning
Valley
into
Green.
the neighborhood, but you're also, the entire stretch is still within the neighborhood. It's not like you're transitioning and don't realize that you're in a neighborhood setting anymore. It's just past that driveway.
But nobody's stopping at the stop sign most of the time either, I could tell you. 9 out of 10 cars don't stop.
No, not on the stop sign, but as Sarah's pulling up.
Right, I know what you mean, I know back down
It
towards
says slow
Wayland.
down on
I know
that 25-mile-an-hour sign.
Right, I know what that is. I'm just saying the danger is more when you get down.
Right.
I mean, they're probably speeding down, they might be speeding the other way too, I don't know. I don't see down there, I can't see that. But I just know where they are coming through there,
Right.
and maybe they're not going 25 or 30. I've gone around that curve just to see. And if you're not going more than 30, you don't need to put your brakes on. I mean, and you could just have somebody check it for me. I'll guarantee you, if you don't go more than 30, and even 30 is not going to hurt somebody, probably if it's 25. But,
Right.
I'm just afraid one of the kids is going to get hit. That's all.
Okay, fair
And
enough.
I know it from personal experience. I don't want to see it.
Thank you. So I think what I'm hearing, then the next steps are going to be
I
marked.
think we need to collect some data,
Data.
put the traffic tubes out. Thankfully, one of these days it'll warm up. We can put the tubes on the road and Eric won't scrape them off with his snowplows. So we can, look to put those out. The cart, I think this one I'd like to collect data first. You don't put the cart and the tubes out at the same time. And it sounds like the cart is going to be in many other locations. So I think having, and that's why I asked the address, putting the tubes on the road, collecting data, seeing if there's a time of day, we've used those before to, recommend to the sheriff's office, hey, every morning at 8:45, somebody comes flying through, or it's just scattered throughout the day. But I think, as Sarah had said, let's, gather the data, look at what we've got, and then we can come back to this. We can put it as a held item, come back to the committee, and then
That sounds like a really good idea.
see what, what we're working with, and, we may need more stop signs, we may need, something else, we may, not stop signs, excuse me, speed signs. We'll look at where the signs are in the neighborhood, we'll do some additional evaluation on, what's going on currently. Is it signed properly today? What's out there, is it an enforcement issue? But I think providing the committee with some more data at your next meeting,
I think that's good.
I think would be the next
Fair
step.
enough, Mr. Clancy?
Yeah,
Good.
I'm not here
Thank
to
you.
be a pain in the,
No.
but I just don't think people are aware of it.
No,
Yeah, well,
thank you
we
for
don't
your,
do it, no.
Appreciate it.
we appreciate bringing it to
Yeah,
us.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Again, moving on to number 5 is Pineview Drive, a guardrail. Request for a guardrail on this is from Mr. Tate.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we did receive an online submission from a resident, and I believe their address is 14 Pineview Drive. There is a creek crossing on or under Pineview near High Ledge. They do have a younger child that is learning how to ride her bike, and they were concerned about kind of where that creek crossing is and having I guess nothing to protect in the event that the kid took a turn and went over and down into that creek from the road itself. Sarah, I don't know if you can pull up the kind of the street view where that creek crossing is. I think it's more so probably even on the south side than, or the
Is it?
right where that bend is,
Yeah.
right there.
Thanks.
But then maybe even more so kind of looking, to the south side where that creek crossing is,
Right
tends to
here.
be a little bit closer than the north side. There are some trees and some growth
That's what they're talking about, right?
there, but I guess the bottom of the creek bed is quite a bit lower than the road itself.
Yeah.
So her request was, whether to put some type of, guardrail or something to help protect anyone from going off the edge.
On both sides, Eric? Was she interested?
They
and that-
didn't specify one side or the other, so I would say they would prefer both.
Yeah.
The only thing is that when you put those up, it's going to make people that are, if you're walking your dog or something, you're going to be in the road. You can't be off the road.
Yeah, because of the trees, they wouldn't, it's not like you can set them
Oh,
off
okay.
too far. They would encroach fairly close to the gutter.
Right.
I did respond back and let them know that I would share this request or concern with the group and let them know, what determinations were made.
How would that affect your snow plowing?
So that would make it a little tight. I mean,
It's tight now in
It
there.
looks tight.
I was going to say, it looks tight already.
it is, in the event that we've got excessive snow buildup and then we need to come through and shelf, that would pose some, I guess, would make that more difficult.
Is that all town land right there that we own? Or that's town-owned land?
I don't believe we actually own any of it. We
No,
just
there's
have
a
an
little bit of
access
creek through
easement
there.
over the
We've-
creek.
We've been involved with some erosion issues along the creek line, but I believe it's all private property down
So
through
it's
there.
not this woman's property that is requesting this?
Well, she's requesting it parallel to the road within the right of way.
Okay.
So as her child's riding a bike, in the road, if they, especially learning how to ride the bike, if they end up making a turn,
Learn faster. Or splash. Sorry.
Have we had, not aware of any traffic issues we've had in this area? I'm more worried about a child, but worried about, vehicular off the side of the road with a
Yeah.
culvert and everything else.
I know, it's kind of weird that that's there without a guide rail to,
It doesn't look like there's room for a guide rail to
Doesn't
safely
look
be
like
put
it to
there.
me either.
Without
Because
taking the trees down.
Right?
well, there's not enough land. So the point of a guide rail is not to prevent you from going completely, it's not to stop you from going completely off. It's if you hit it, you have space for it to flex generally
Right.
and you come back.
Guide you back in.
But the space that's there, there's not really enough room, at least looking at this image,
And
to
then there's
put
a
a guide
telephone.
rail where there's that extra room. Maybe Tim can speak to that better because
And
I'm
we got
not
a
great with
telephone
guide
pole
rails.
there as well, it appears.
Yeah, I mean, the guy,
Yeah,
go ahead,
what
Tim.
is the right-of-way width that the town has there?
I believe it's 60 feet.
Wow.
Oh, it's 60, okay.
Most town roads are.
Okay. And the roadway width is probably barely 20 if I'm just looking at this Google map. So there's room to get rid of the trees and move the guide rail back and provide, typically you just want a safe recovery area that's, you know, off the edge of pavement, 10 feet is a recoverable area. I mean, to put up a guide rail for a bicycle is not really an appropriate use of guide rail. It's
Right, I
obviously
know.
designed as
Vehicle.
Sarah mentioned, with respect to vehicles, and it's intended to be, guide them back onto the travel way, which certainly a guide rail would do that for bicycle as well, but that's not the intent of a guide rail. Is there any way to just make that area within the 60 feet more level or more conducive to if they did go off the road, that they'd be able to recover and get out without getting hurt?
So, and I
Tough for me to
was,
see.
I was incorrect. The right-of-way is actually 49 and a half feet through that stretch. Unfortunately, to be able to, I guess, provide any, lawn area on either side, the culvert crossing would actually, the culvert pipe itself would
too
need to be
short.
extended on both sides.
Better?
Right, so,
Yeah, from my recollection,
Pipe's too short.
the culvert is very short on either side, so
yeah.
there's not the 10-foot of.
So you can't grade it, you can't really do much with it.
Sarah
short
had
of
shared, it's
extending.
not the 10-foot of recovery area, or, I mean, ideally, you'd extend the culvert pipe on either side and grade it out a little bit and have a little, grassed recovery area. It's just
Yep.
short, and I think, we look at the condition of the culvert, and if and when that reached its.
That'd be the time to do it, right? Then when you
reached
replace
its-
the culvert, you do it right.
Reached its life cycle, extended out a little longer on either side. As I kind of highlighted, we got a utility pole on the one side, so we've got to look at, what the impact, if you did extend the culvert. My recollection, the utility pole is almost in the creek edge or side, so we've got a little impact there as well.
Yeah.
So this might be, way out of line, but would it be possible, is there some other kind of an obstacle we could put there, in almost like a rock or something that?
No, legally, we're not able to put rocks or any fixed object within the right-of-way.
Okay, that answers that.
Yeah, I mean, we
You
would
trade
be,
one benefit for
Right,
the other. I mean,
I
having a
understand.
rock there and somebody hits that,
Yes.
that's not a designed,
Right.
engineered feature. Somebody
But
hits a
hitting a
rock and it
guardrail, you
damages
could
their
get hurt
car.
too. I mean, you could get hurt hitting a guardrail.
Yeah, but it's an engineered design, there's specs, I
Right.
mean, again, that's not meant to
Yes.
be a stop,
Understand.
it's meant to kind of guide
Right.
you back in. As you're going off the side of the road, you're drifting, you hit that, it pushes
Yeah.
you back into the roadway.
I mean, the guide rails are more for vehicles that are, coming off the edge of the road at a slight angle to help kind of guide them back onto the roadway itself, not
Yeah.
for, I guess, while I suppose it would work, it's not intended for, a kid on a bicycle to
Right.
So this child is
drive into
learning
it at a
to ride her
perpendicular.
bike. Obviously,
angle.
this is not a very busy road, right?
Correct.
So then why isn't she learning in the middle of the road? Or, you know what I mean? I just,
I think the resident probably is just looking for it to be a safer area. It's a very valid concern. It's just that there's not the land for us to
right,
be able
I
to
get that.
reasonably do that.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's why I'm saying, let her ride in the road, because we can't make land. There's a creek.
What is the grading just to the left on the screen there? I guess on one, or a little bit further than that even.
Oh, where the arrow is the end of the pipe, so that tree is kind of at the end of the pipe, and then it drops off pretty quickly down into the creek bottom.
What about just beyond the tree there? If you could maybe scroll ahead.
Could do
I
what?
might be able to do something better.
I guess
So-
maybe I was wondering is if it's eroding away a little bit there at the top, if there's anything we could do just to put some additional topsoil and seed down to maybe smooth out
I mean,
the
I look at it
area.
right at the edge, but not too far beyond that is kind of the
Steeper slope.
the flares on the end of the culvert. And then that's kind of holding the side banks back as the metal culvert ends, and then it drops off pretty.
And it looks like there's a drop off right here.
That's what I say, that's the edge
Yeah.
of the top edge of the culvert, there, when we can look and see if there's anything eroding around that, but kind of beyond that, it's a 3-foot, I think, diameter culvert, if I'm recalling, and then, the trees are kind of doing their job, holding the slopes back on the side, to be nervous about, if you take all the trees down, now you've got erosion kind of on either
Right,
side.
Right.
That's why I was questioning if we've had any other vehicle issues or access is, kind of the initial intent for a guide rail is for, directing vehicles back in, not for
Keeping people on the road.
keeping bicycles or pedestrians.
There is a cul-de-sac, while they do live on the opposite side of that creek, and have that running along their side property line, there is a cul-de-sac directly across Pineview from their neighborhood. It is, a short stretch, but the entire cul-de-sac itself is paved over, and I think that would be a better location than trying to ride right along,
Right.
on the
I
road
know.
closest to that creek.
I think it's a one-off incident,
And I think it's something we can keep an eye on, for vehicular access, putting a guide rail in for a, bicyclist really isn't the purpose of what that's used
I
for.
think
And then we
I'm
can
hearing-
look at the life cycle of the culvert, and if and when it needs to be replaced, we'd look at that time to extend the culvert out, and, then you'd have, blend off a recovery area on either side.
I'm hearing that all in agreement that we would keep this on.
I mean, I wouldn't put it as a held item. I think our response back
Right.
is, that's not the appropriate
For-
I agree.
measure or method.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Our immediate
we'll keep an eye on it for
Mm-hmm.
safety. I don't think we need to have as a held item, but
Could you have any visible barrier there, like reflective stake or something like that, marking the drop off, or?
I mean, you could look at something, reflective. You'd say, well, let's put in a split rail fence, or let's put in rocks or something. If it's in the right of way and it's not, following the MUTCD, then you run the risk of
It,
having issues on the other end, and now you didn't follow
Right.
a standard, practice or method.
I mean, regardless, if someone did hit something, they're going to hit, if they hit a tree, or they'll hit something in there if they. if
It's just,
the
it makes a
bike-
liability of the town
Yeah,
is,
it-
if we put in
it doesn't
rocks
matter
along
what
the
it
edge of the
is.
road, or we
Right.
put in something else, and we're not following the manual, we're not putting in
Right.
according to the regulations, now we've got a liability that, the town put in the rocks. I
Right.
mean, we didn't plant the trees, that nature put the trees in, but if we go in there and
Oh.
implement something that doesn't follow the code or the manual, then it becomes a liability for the town.
I would think that hopefully that we can nicely get back to her and hopefully tell her that, then there is a nice cul-de-sac around the corner, as you pointed out,
Yeah.
to learn to ride in, her bike in, or their bikes in. So, and we'll keep an eye on it. Okay. Thank you, Eric and Mark, on that. Number 6, Guygrace Lane, a speeding concern, Mr. Tate. That's
Thank
you.
you. So I also received an email from actually, I believe it was a phone call from a resident. They are actually on Guygrace, I believe it's house number 143. Specifically concerned about the stretch between Anthony Circle and Simone Terrace. Originally, we're requesting the possibility of speed bumps. I did have a conversation with the resident and indicated that typically speed bumps would not be, or at least historically, have not been this committee's preference, especially to curtail speeding. That, while we do have them on Huntington Meadow, shortly after the installation of those, we also noticed that vehicles were either driving up into front yards to avoid driving over them, or were slowing down to drive over and then speeding up before the next. She was very understanding of that, but wanted to inquire about the possibility of, I guess, anything that could be done to assist. Somewhat self-admittedly and selfishly was concerned about that particular stretch because it's directly in front of her house. But that was, again, I explained that I would bring it to the committee, mention and share the concern and see if anyone else had any thoughts.
Eric, did she have a concern about speed or just the amount of traffic, or what led her to speed bumps?
It stemmed from vehicle speeding, or at least the perception of speeding.
Go ahead.
My understanding is Guygrace, though, is not a cut-through for anything. Pretty much, these are probably the people that live in there, the residents that live in there that are speeding.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Sarah, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, that's completely applicable. If the first concern is speed or perception of speed, I would recommend the driver feedback.
Yep. And I guess, we can also take a look back to see, when traffic counts were last taken, and if it's been a number of years to add that to the list for, the traffic tubes this summer as well.
I think we've gotten something on Guygrace years ago, though, if I remember.
It may not have been in this
correctly.
specific stretch. I think we've done Guygrace.
Yep.
My recollection's more on the outer loop.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can't say specifically between Anthony and Simone Terrace, but we can take a look and see where we put those, and then.
In our current spreadsheet, we do not have Guygrace
Okay.
traffic counts.
Oh, good, okay. Because one thing I think that you mentioned too, Lori, is I think it's the neighborhood. I think if people become more aware of letting their neighbors know and watching, a little bit of education, I think, with the traffic counts, and that might help a little bit, especially as we're getting into out of COVID here. I guess that people are back out.
Everybody's coming back out of their house.
I guess, and
I think, it's something we can
that has something,
work with our communications team. And
I think
speeding, unfortunately, is a concern all
It
over,
is.
not just Penfield, all over. Obviously, we can push stuff out through our communications team and through the supervisor's office and column just to, remember it's spring, but kids are out, families are out, people are back in their yards, and, just be, a good neighbor and try to, watch your speed and be aware.
So then I'm here going forward on this. We'll look to put the driver counts out on this. Keep an eye on this. This will be a held item, really, right? Well, do you want to look at this again, or just follow
We can
up?
put it as a held item and then circle back with the committee if,
Okay.
and again,
And see if
we'll have to
there's-
see between now and May, between the weather and whatnot. We may not be able to get counts on all these streets ahead of the May agenda, but
Right, I'm sure.
we'll try our best.
Right. I'm sure not. So unless anybody has any other questions or concerns on that, okay. Thank you again, Eric, Mark, and Sarah on that. We have a couple held items that we're going to keep on held. New business, don't have any, does anybody have any new business before us?
Did just want to mention, as I know we've gotten, and I've seen a few emails and had a few phone calls, the Monroe County DOT is undergoing a roadway improvement project on Salt Road between Plank and Atlantic right now. The road is very narrow with next to no shoulders, as well as a rather deep swale, especially on the north end of that stretch. Part of that project is going to further north. Part of that is going to incorporate it was originally, I guess, hoped to actually pipe and enclose the ditch, with storm sewer pipe. They have, I guess, per DEC's approval, they have been required to make an enclosed waterway. So they are driving sheet piling and then going to put a concrete precast top slab over that. Where Sarah in that picture is showing that, I guess, the creek itself along the edge of the road. and then we'll be actually widening and adding shoulders to the road. So I think that will be, a betterment, certainly make it safer in the event that any vehicles do get off the road, at least on that one side. And as part of the project, I know have seen some emails that while most of the residents are happy that something's being done to improve the road, there have been some concerns related to the speed on that. However, those emails were already directed to the county, and the county has followed up with responses to such. So
Great.
just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Eric. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you brought that up because I had it. And here, any residents that are interested to learn more about that in detail, it's on the penfield.org website under Projects of Community Interest, again. And I want to thank Dave Renner for putting that on, and his staff downstairs for putting that on the website. Public participation, I'm not seeing anyone, not sure anybody downstairs, anyone called in?
Negative.
Thank you, sir. Then we're down to our next meeting of the transportation will be on May 19th, 2022. So,
Debbie, I just wanted to
sorry, Mary.
make just a quick comment. I didn't know where to put this, but
Sure.
this is a state road to Browncroft Boulevard. There was a large pothole. I mean,
Oh, there are
humongous
potholes. Yeah.
pothole. And I hit it one night when I was coming from the city, and I literally thought my car was going to flip over. It was so huge. So I called the 1-800 number, and I had to call twice. But when I called back the second time, and I pinpointed, because there's no markers to really identify, but it is a mile down when you turn off of 590 going east, and it's in the left-hand side of the road, about a mile down. And I suggested to her, I said, if they can't get to it right away to repair the pothole, could they at least put a cone there? And they did.
Oh, did they?
And
Good.
that's it. I was so glad that they did do that. The next day, it had a cone in there.
Wow.
So I don't know when they're going to repair it, but it's got to be this big and about that. I can't judge how deep it is, but it really shook my car the night
Wow.
I hit it. So
Yeah, I know what area you're talking about. We've gotten a number of emails and phone calls about that,
really?
and have also passed that on to the New York State DOT.
Great. Well, that works on that 1-800
It does,
number.
it
It's
works.
nice to hear. It's nice to, that's good. Hopefully they'll be out there soon now that the weather's getting
hopefully.
warmer.
Well, the
and-
cone helps too. Just to have that
Absolutely.
cone in there.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Mary. Anything else? I didn't mean to miss anybody. Okay. So now, again, our next meeting of the Transportation Committee will be May 19th. So I hope you all have a nice, safe, healthy rest of the month. And spring's coming. It's here, so
Here.
enjoy. So thank you again. And thank you to PCTV for broadcasting tonight. I want to thank you to the town staff, Sarah, Linda, Mark, and Eric, for all you guys do for this committee as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.